right, guys, it's good to be back. This is not going to be a review video. I've got a couple more of those in the works, and I appreciate the feedback that I'm getting. I also appreciate you guys sending me new material. This article that I want to share today and have a little discussion primarily about masculinity, about manhood, about what we need to be doing in terms of restoring the kingdom. This article came to me through a forum that I participate in, and somebody posted this. I think what they had posted it under was Smashing Baals, or yes, Smashing Baals. And indeed, we need to be tearing down the idols, and we need to be destroying those things that set themselves against the kingdom of our Elohim and the kingdom of our Messiah. Now, of course, background here, what you're seeing, and some of you have heard me talk about this before. This is a picture that I took when I was in Jerusalem the first time, back in about 2015, I think it was, right at Shavuot time frame. Beautiful, beautiful day, but standing. And at the time that I took this picture, we were standing among the ruins at the foot of the Temple Mount. Right near that area. There's very nice, it's a beautiful park, but a lot of ancient walls, ancient stones. And one of the things that inspires me often is the fact that Isaiah chapter 58 verse 12 says, "And you shall be called repairers of the breach, restorers of the streets on which to dwell." And then it continues into those who hold fast to the Shabbat and who are intentional in restoring the kingdom. And so we want to talk about that a little bit today. I want to talk about that specifically with regards to masculinity. So this article, without further ado, comes from Not the Bee. Now, many of you already know that I am a Babylon Bee fan. There's a lot of cool stuff. Good satire sometimes is the best way to make a point. However, the Babylon Bee also has a sister website that is called Not the Bee, and essentially what they are sharing or passing along is factual, is true news articles that need to be pushed out there. In this particular article, it's fairly short, so we're going to read through it very quickly together, and then we need to talk about it. Or I may stop and talk about some sections in the middle of it as we go. But the title, Young Men Aren't Interested in Church. This is how to change that. And so this is the author's opinion or understanding on how to change that. And I agree with some significant pieces of this, and we'll talk about it. So I feel this in my bones. Across every denomination, the Christian faith in Western churches has been distilled down to an 11th commandment. That 11th commandment being, "Thou shalt be nice." A lot of this feminization. This is done in the name of love, and truth is the first casualty. As the church becomes more of a social club, men check out. Men want something to fight for, a cause that's worthy of struggle, sacrifice, and even death. They want to boldly lead, build, and fight back the shadows. More than that, they want and need a king to follow into battle. Now, a quick aside here. Just about 2 weeks ago, or a week and a half ago, The Revolting Man and Homegrown Liberty, Zek and Nick, and I did a live cast as we had a discussion about the plight of single women in the church, the dearth or lack of men who are marriageable, and what Scripture offers as a solution to that. But in the process of that discussion, we also had a pretty good discussion leading into it concerning the fact that masculinity is not welcome in the church. And that's part of the cry of this article. The reality is man is designed. Now, men and women are designed differently. God designed us for different purposes, different roles. Man definitely as a leader, as head, and as one who is a conqueror, one who is to go out and to have dominion over the earth, to be fruitful and multiply, etc. And the woman is given to him as a helpmeet, as one that can help him in that quest. And we discussed a little bit about the fact that Christianity has so feminized the gospel such that the lion's share of what happens out there is that Jesus is my boyfriend, opposed to looking at him as the warrior that he is. And when we next see him, Revelation chapter 19, I believe, talks about this, riding on a horse with a sword and with an armies, the hosts of heaven behind him, for the purpose of conquering and completing the discipline that he's bringing about on the earth. And so when we are teaching young men anything other than this warrior ethos of our king, then what we are doing is we are undermining not only the identity of who our Messiah is and what he stands for. He's a lion, okay? And he comes as the Lion of the tribe of Judah, and he comes as a king and as a warrior. When we undermine that, what we do is we undermine the very core essence of what every man is and what every man desires. Culturally, our culture has gone out of the way to try to divest or remove from young men the very calling of their heart that they were created for, and that's to have dominion and to be conquerors and to lead. So let's continue with this article. This is why the ardent fedora-wearing keyboard warrior who proclaims no belief in God and believes he alone is the pinnacle of human intellect is likely tweeting about how superior he is while surrounded by hordes of Marvel, Disney, and Dungeons & Dragons gear. He can't help but live in the way he was designed to be as a man. And if he doesn't follow his creator into battle, he will follow and worship the idols of Comic-Con, Wall Street, and ESPN in God's stead. The world would love to give our young men something else, and they find it a lot in video games. They find it a lot in pursuing other issues of conquering other foci, opposed to the one that the Father gives us, and that's the kingdom. So we need to talk about this a little bit more. But I want to read a little more of the article, and then we're going to come back to this. These men need a God who isn't a sky fairy, but a warrior who hurls the horse and rider into the sea. They need one who puts on righteousness as his breastplate and the helmet of salvation on his head to repay wrath to those who have perverted justice. They need the Ancient of Days who opens the book from his throne of fire, slays the beasts, and holds everlasting dominion. They need the one with blazing eyes who comes from heaven with a sword and a robe dipped in blood, ready to strike down the nations. The Son of David, the warrior. Because of this, a church that's reduced itself to self-help messages from the pulpit and lovey-dovey songs about our feelings doesn't inspire or attract men. And nothing here could be more truthful than this statement right here. Is, Jesus is my boyfriend, and I just want the sloppy wet kiss of heaven, opposed to the warrior ethos. And this comes from a feminized church that is no longer led by men. It's led by either led by women or led by men who are so feminine that they have a very androgynous. They have a very androgynous appearance to them. The way they dress, the way they talk, the way they act, or they're even just straight up feminized. The way our churches view men and women is largely the same as the surrounding culture. As this complacency has happened, the church's view on marriage, sexuality, and parenting have become more or less what Hollywood celebrities were saying 10 years ago. And you will find on my channel over and over, that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about what headship and patriarchy is all about. We're talking about in depth where the church and many of its teachers are completely wrong with regards to what Scripture says in terms of marriage, which plays directly into how we view headship and patriarchy and how we view the headship and the masculine role that that the man is to be fulfilling and the man is to be walking out as the head and the leader and the prophet, priest, and king of his home. So as our fundamental understanding of human identity erodes, civilizations collapse under the weight of growing sin. And many churches see this problem but trying to fix it by becoming more affirming and tolerant, like a mom trying desperately to love a rebellious kid out of reckless behavior when they need the firm discipline of a father. The church is doing exactly the opposite of what needs to happen. They're so afraid of losing, particularly the money and the adoration of fawning women who that's where they find fulfillment is in all the feelings and emotion side of religion, instead of standing up and preaching what the truth is and what Scripture says, and particularly about the kingdom. So when men try to do what God designed them to do and bring order to chaos, often they are told that they are being proud and labeled servant, and the label servant leader is weaponized to undercut their natural masculine desire to protect against encroaching danger. The church can't survive. The church cannot, and this is another very true statement. The church cannot survive without manly men of God leading it. Guys, if you're in a wimpy church or if you've got a wimpy pastor, I'm telling you, it's coming apart. It will fall. It's going to collapse under its own weight. You can just watch it happen. Okay? Congregations that ignore this reality will fade into apostasy and inevitably close their doors. There's no question. So the author postulates, how do we fix this problem? And he says, smash the secular idols that have been placed alongside Messiah in our churches for the last century, when Messiah in his word, and put Messiah and his word back at the center. And that's part of the truth. That's part of the truth. His word, the Messiah's word, is the Torah. And there's no question at all that we've got to go back. In fact, there are a lot of people that seem to want to negotiate even among the Hebrew roots and Torah-keeping crowd. They want to negotiate with how much of the Torah they're going to hold to. Either you take the whole enchilada, or you're already undermining the very foundation of it all. What begins with family flows into corporate worship. And this is why I'm so passionate about getting the man and getting marriage and getting the family right. We have to define those according to what Scripture says. We cannot define those based on what the world says, because what the world says, well, look around. What the world says is absolute disaster, and we're watching the chaos of that. Even in a, quote, monogamy-only society, what we have is serial polygyny. We have serial polygamy wherein everybody, even in the church, they have one marriage and divorce, another marriage and divorce, another marriage and divorce, and then they want to wag their finger at people like me who are teaching, keep the covenant of your marriage, but you're not restricted to a single covenant. And we talk about that in other videos. I don't really want to go there here. But the bottom line is this: masculinity, manhood, has to be brought to the fore, and it has to take a strong, firm stand on the Word and what the Word says. I don't care about culture, don't care about tradition, don't give a rip about the Greco-Romanized church. And we'll talk about that a little bit more in just a second. But the reason a lot of young men are turning to secular experts like Jordan Peterson and are increasingly interested in Christian nationalism books, which will never be featured in most churches, is that they know deep down that masculinity is a fixed and unmovable thing that God has designed and defined, and that something in our culture has gone horribly against this design. Listen, you men, if you have a yearning, a longing for masculinity, if you have a yearning and a longing for being a warrior, understand that comes from God. It's the way He designed you. It has nothing to do with anything else out there. The passion that men have for warrior movies, and I'm going to throw one up behind me here in just a second while we're talking, but that passion to conquer and to do something that is bold and that secures something of enduring significance, that's a real deal. God gave that to you. He made you that way. And the church and the world that tries to suppress that or remove that from you is false. It's a lie, and you have to shake your fist at it. You have to pull your spine straight up and say, absolutely not. I am not playing that feminized, wimpy game, because it comes straight from the devil. It comes straight from the adversary. I'm totally confident of that. It's programmed into each man's heart, and like gravity, this is talking about masculinity, like gravity, it will assert itself given enough time. The problem is, human masculinity is not the all-encompassing definition of God's character. God made men and women in his image, each different and each reflecting different aspects of his glory. Okay? What milquetoast American churches do not realize is that the coming backlash of culture against the over-feminization of society is inevitable. It's already happening. Listen, let me tell you something. Men leaving the church, that's a good thing as far as I'm concerned, because once they get out of the church, if they're smart and they actually truly have a relationship with the Messiah, they will go back to the Word and say, what did I miss? And that's where I'm finding men of strong character, men of spine, men who are warriors and who are taking a bold stand for truth and for the kingdom. They don't care about traditions. They don't care about the crap that comes with all the religion. They don't care about pastors that have been lying to them. They don't care about church denominations and doctrinal statements that have been lying to them, because they're smart enough to pick up their Bible and start reading it and go, wait a minute, that's not what they were teaching me at church, right? I'm telling you, it's already happening. So the church will follow instead of lead, because it hasn't led for nearly a century in this nation, and the consequences will be dire. So when that happens, the woke feminists screeching about the patriarchy and toxic masculinity very well may come true, especially now that culture reflects pagan societies much more than Christian civilization. And I really don't like where they go with this right in here, simply because Christian civilization is a non sequitur. Okay? What we have is we have Greco-Roman civilization in Western culture that has a little bit of Jesus paint on it. You do the research. Christmas and Easter, originally pagan holidays celebrated long before Yeshua came. Sunday, no, God never changed it. Hasn't been changed. Monogamy only, that is a Greco-Roman construct that comes straight out of Greco-Roman law. It does not come out of Scripture. It's defended with a couple really poorly chosen verses in Scripture, and there's so much in Scripture that is contrary to that completely. Lots of other things. There are lots of other things that we can pursue. And again, I don't want to get off on a big tangent here, but the bottom line is this. God made patriarchy. God designed patriarchy. Comes all the way from Gan Eden, the Garden of Eden, when he made Adam and gave him dominion over the earth and told him to be fruitful and multiply. And only after he had given that command to Adam did he go get a helper suitable for him that would help Adam accomplish the mission that he gave to Adam. Patriarchy. The entirety of Scripture is a patriarchal story. Screeching feminists, some brutal hyper-masculine worldview of the Vikings or the Romans or the Assyrians may come to pass in America as well. The prophecies of alt-right Handmaid's Tale nightmares may very well have some truth in them as order comes to inevitable chaos. Okay? Author goes on, talks about it, but he basically comes down at the end. He said, church leaders need to start here. He said, from this point, expand your focus on men. Stop pushing books about vulnerability and servant leadership by New York Times best-selling Christian authors. Quite frankly, if it appears on the New York Times, I'm not interested, okay? It's just garbage. Go to the fringes. Find the people the culture is demonizing. Dive into history books and talk about what it means to make disciples of the nations. So let's talk a little bit about that. And he makes a reference here. And if you get the chance, go sit in a deer stand with some men and start planning the revolution of godly masculinity that will shatter the spears of the devil and fortify the church so that she can be protected from the utter evil that now assails her. But what what we need to do is we need to understand indeed. This is a great scene here from Braveheart, a famous movie and one that I absolutely love that deals a whole lot with masculinity, but it deals particularly with a hero, William Wallace, who is outside of the establishment, and yet he works and builds and grows such men will follow a man, men will follow a leader, men will follow a king, men will follow something greater than themselves. And in this particular story, the great example that we have is that he took on England, and he did it even in the face of the Scottish nobles who were seeking to enrich themselves at the expense of their own people. And yet William Wallace stood against that and ultimately led to the freedom of Scotland. But let me tell you something. As men, I want you to understand something. As a man, I want you to understand something. Listen to me. There is a kingdom, and it is worth fighting for. The church has been teaching this rapture doctrine, and I'm going to be making a video here very shortly about the fact that there is no rapture. Okay? The scripture teaches something very different, and the church instead has this rapture pie in the sky doctrine that says you really don't have to do anything. You just kind of hang out and wait for Jesus to snatch you out of here before he judges everybody, right? That's not the way it's going to work, okay? Noah was on the earth when the earth was judged. Israel was in Egypt when Egypt was judged. God protected both in the place that they were during that time frame. But it wasn't because they weren't being obedient. It's because they were being obedient and because he had a calling and a particular covenant and relationship with them. Okay? And we can build that out later on. Scripture's very clear, though, that there is 1,000-year millennial reign. Israel will be restored as a complete people. I'm not talking about the modern state. I'm not talking about the nation that exists there today. I believe that many there are part of the people of God who form Israel. But there are more prophecies in Scripture about the restoration of the kingdom. In fact, even Yeshua himself, he's getting ready to ascend. Acts chapter 1, verses 6, 7, and 8, something like that. He's getting ready to ascend. He's leaving, and the disciples know that he's leaving. And he's spent all this time teaching them these things, and then they say, Lord, is it at this time you're going to restore kingdom Israel? That's the most pressing question that they've got. And he doesn't say, you bunch of dolts. No, I didn't come. I came to start a new religion. Come on, guys. That's not what he said. He said, it's not for you to know the time, but you need to go be witnesses to the kingdom, right? The gospel of the kingdom is the good news of the kingdom. It's about a king and it's about a kingdom. And you need to understand that there are more prophecies about the restoration of the kingdom than there are even about the coming of the Messiah. But right there, he says, you need to be my witnesses in Jerusalem and Judea and Samaria and the uttermost parts of the earth. Why did he choose Jerusalem and Samaria? Well, those were the capital cities of the southern kingdom and the northern kingdom. Why did he choose Judea? Well, that's where the Jews were, right? Why did he say the uttermost parts of the earth? Because the northern kingdom had been scattered to the ends of the earth. But there are prophecies over and over and over. In fact, if you go read Jeremiah chapter 31, that's a great place to look, because Jeremiah chapter 31, where the new covenant is, it's about the kingdom. It's about the restoration of Ephraim, the northern kingdom. It's about the return of the northern kingdom. It's when the watchmen stand on the wall and cry out and say, hey, wait, it's time to rebuild the kingdom. So, you know, if you're look at this article right here that's in front of me, I look at this article and I say, the problem is we're not teaching our young men that there's a kingdom. There is 1,000-year reign yet to go. We've got a speed bump called the tribulation coming up, but that's not a big deal. because we have a kingdom to build. We need to be walking in righteousness. We need to be intentional right now, today, with everything that we're doing. Every morning I wake up and it's like, what can I do today for the kingdom? You need to be striking a blow for the kingdom, because we are going to be building a kingdom. And so for men out there that the church is trying to steal their soul by softening and destroying their masculinity, no. God gave you authority, and he gave you a passion, and he gave you a spine, and he gave you an intellect, and he gave you all these things with the expectation that you would use them to have dominion over the earth. Part of that dominion is restoring the kingdom, rebuilding the kingdom, finding out who the king is and what the king's laws are, the Torah. And then walking in that expectation, but not just, okay, it's one more week of Torah, I got my Shabbat in. Or maybe what you need to be doing is intentionally saying, I'm going to strike a blow for the kingdom today. I'm going to make a difference today, because the kingdom will be restored. And there are lots of different ways that you as an individual can be daily making a move in that direction. Building your muscles, building your strength, being the warrior that you're called to be. And that includes doing such things as finding a way to be a witness and a testimony and find other men that you can build. It includes things like finding a way to reach the world, finding a way to reach those around you. Maybe it's a small YouTube channel, or it could be a blog, it could be a book, it could be teaching the guys at work, there are lots of things, but ask the Father, seek for how your skill set can be used for the kingdom, and start applying that. Find ways to do that for the kingdom, because that's what your heart is. That's what will fill that longing in your soul, is to be serving your king and doing what the king asks you to do. And that's to be a witness and to build the kingdom. The kingdom is not going to be pie in the sky, go sit on a cloud, harps, all that kind of, that crap that comes out of church is bogus. The kingdom has a place. Israel. Go read Ezekiel chapter 37. Particularly when you get to the latter portion of that, it tells you where the kingdom's going to be, on the land that I gave your father Jacob. It tells us what we're going to be doing. We're going to be following and keeping the statutes and the ordinances and the commandments. It's going to be a place of everlasting peace. Read the latter parts of Isaiah, where it gives details on what that's going to look like and what we're going to do and how we're going to build and have dominion over the earth from that kingdom. That's why those people, that's why that land is continually attacked, even assaulted from within the church. Because there are those within the church that don't believe in the kingdom. They don't want the kingdom. In fact, they're openly opposed to the kingdom, which is why you see the very things of God, masculinity, headship, patriarchy, authority structure, his Torah, his feasts, all these things. That's why you see those things actively torn down in the church, because they don't want the kingdom. They want to define the kingdom. They're just like the Pharisees of old, who used their traditions to override the commandments of God. Yeah, that's another place that we can go and go to war. I challenge you, men. I challenge you. For king, for kingdom, strike a blow today. Reach out, contact me through my blog. I would love to hear your comments. I would love to get some perspective from your input. I would love for you to share this, like it, pass this along. We need men, and we need men who are dedicated to the kingdom, not interested in fulfilling themselves on video games or fulfilling themselves on sports figures or fulfilling themselves in other places. The kingdom, and how we can be working on that right now, here, today. I challenge you. Love you guys. Shalom.